Hi everybody, Richard Sloggett here from the Politics of Health Substack. I thought I'd record another short video, this time on this question, this burning question. I've had a few inquiries about over the last couple of weeks on who will be the next Health and Social Care Secretary. So in this video, I'm just going to dive into some of the runners and riders for the role and assess their particular prospects. I think the first thing to say is nobody really knows who the next Health and Social Care Secretary is. It will be decided by this man, who will be the next Prime Minister, barring some very freak form of events. Andy Burnham will be making the decision, and there is lots of people jostling for cabinet roles. Lots of briefing going on about who is going to get the top jobs. Lots of rumours and speculation as well about people being brought back. David Miliband, perhaps, as Foreign Secretary. Will Ed Balls have a role of some kind? So lots of people fighting for relatively few positions. So there are going to be some people that are disappointed. One of the things that has come across quite clearly, though, about how Burnham is approaching this is he wants what he calls a balanced cabinet across different wings of the party. That is sort of exemplified, I think, by the fact that he is having access talks with the civil service and the government with James Purnell, his new chief of staff, who will be taking up the role in Downing Street, seems to be someone from the more Blairite wing of the Labour Party, and Louise Haigh is also part of the team that is having these access talks, and Lee Haigh is seen as being part of the soft left. So a balanced approach is what Burnham is pitching here. And as somebody who is taking over for a Prime Minister mid-term, I think what he's trying to do is pitch himself as a unifying candidate. Why is this important? Well, it's important because I think whoever is picked will send quite an important signal on what may or may not change. We've got a lot of change and flux going on in health policy right now, not only at the sort of who is running the service and the system, but what the system is focused on and how it's going to do things, both through the rolling out of aspects of the 10-year health plan. We're a year on from that and progress has been mixed. But then also alongside that, obviously, a big piece of legislation going through the House that the new person in position will have to take forward. And how does that legislation line up with what Burnham and his government may want to do, and how is that going to be managed? So in a way, some of this could be seen to be sort of Westminster kind of chatter, but as always with these sorts of roles, whoever is put in will send a signal about whether there'll be what sort of direction might be taken on some of the healthcare reforms that are going through Parliament and in the policy world right now. What I'm going to do for the next few slides is just appraise the cabinet and one or two and some of those outside of cabinet and their sort of standing and are they contenders to potentially be the next Health and Social Care Secretary? And at the end of the deck, I'll summarise those who I think are in the strongest position. So if you want to jump ahead and find out, you can. I think it's about towards the end is where I summarise the slides. But if otherwise, I will start with the great offices of state and the Deputy Prime Minister. So very quickly here, I don't think Rachel Reeves is going to be the next Health and Social Care Secretary. I think she clearly is going to not be the Chancellor anymore. There is some evidence that she still wants to retain a cabinet position, but I think health would be too high profile and too choppy for her to manage. David Lammy as Deputy Prime Minister in the Keir Starmer government, Justice Secretary and Lord Chancellor. It's not impossible that he could be given a health brief as a way to keep him on side. He was a junior health minister in the mid-2000s for a brief period. But Lammy is himself quite a controversial character, and again, there's scepticism about whether you would want someone like him in the health role right now. Shabana Mahmood at the bottom. All the talk there is that she's either going to stay at the Home Office or move to become Chancellor, and she wants to see, in particular, her immigration reforms through. That leaves Yvette Cooper. Now, there's lots of briefing about the Foreign Secretary position and the Chancellorship. But all the sort of briefing is that Yvette Cooper wants to stay, obviously, as Foreign Secretary, but there's some talk that Wes Streeting has cut a deal with Andy Burnham to take that position from Yvette Cooper, so Yvette Cooper would need something else. Now, the way I've graded her is as a contender. I think she's somebody who has done the health brief before. She was a public health minister. She's very experienced. She understands how Whitehall and government works. So she could be someone who, if she isn't going to be kept in the Foreign Secretary role and needs a big job, could the health department and health reform be something that is offered to her? So of the four, I think that Cooper is in a position to be considered. Mahmood is in the red. There's a RAG rating system here that I've used. I don't think Mahmood is in the running, and Reeves and Lammy is very unlikely. What you'll see through the deck is there's amber and orange. Amber is less likely, and orange is more likely to be considered. So of these four, I would say Vetkeeper is probably the one to keep an eye on. If we then go down to the other significant cabinet jobs, there's some people I think will be ruled out here. Ed Miliband, all the talk is of him getting promoted, very close to Andy Burnham. Talk of him becoming Chancellor. If he's not going to become Chancellor, I think he's going to get something more significant than health. Likes of Pat McFadden, I think is likely to stay where he is and to be told to sort of see through the welfare reforms, which is going to be quite an important part of Burnham's agenda to try and sort of keep on top of public spending. Two or three that I think are worth picking out. Liz Kendall's an interesting one because she's obviously got a lot of healthcare experience from her time, both working for Patricia Hewitt, but also as a special advisor, but also she was Shadow Care Minister in the early 2010s when Andy Burnham was also Shadow Health Secretary. But she's struggled with the welfare reforms, and she's seen as being seen as a strong Blairite, which could be difficult to put into health when there is when there is that sort of challenge of perception of when Burnham might want someone who's more aligned politically to his own way of thinking. James Murray shouldn't be completely ruled out. The current incumbent, seen as being quite technocratic across the detail, struggling a little bit at the moment in the face of some of the pressures around maternity and the media spotlight. I think that has been a bit of a sort of shock to him. I'd be surprised if he stayed in post, but it's not impossible. And also the question here is, as well, as I said at the top, the balance of the cabinet and the big jobs, how many people are in play. I don't think James Murray is in the top 10 to 12 people that Andy Burnham needs to keep on side, so it probably does fall down the list as a result of that. Two other interesting ones to flag here. I don't think Reid, Kyle and Jones are going to sort of trouble the scorers for a cricketing analogy on this one. But two I think are worth looking at are Bridget Phillipson. If Burnham wanted to make a change at education for whatever reason, if he felt like he needed to put someone new in there, he could switch Phillipson over to health. Good experience of working in a big public sector delivery department. So there is some sort of rationale there, and I think I've graded that one green as one to watch. The other one is Johnny Reynolds. Clearly hasn't enjoyed what has been a difficult period as Chief Whip. Manchester MP, seems to be a Burnham supporter. Could he be brought back here to take on a big department? Again, I don't think that's impossible. So, yeah, that's an appraisal of the other significant cabinet jobs. And in this list, I think Phillipson is probably the one most likely to be sort of considered or potentially considered for health. When you look at the rest of the cabinet, I don't think many of these individuals are going to be sort of front of mind for consideration to be the next Health and Social Care Secretary. So whether that's Lisa Nandy, Douglas Alexander, Lucy Rigby, for whom she's been promoted quite quickly over the last couple of years. There's others with lower profiles, or in the case of Hilary Benn, I don't see why you would move someone of his stature from the brief of Northern Ireland, which is just needs that continuity and that kind of experienced handle on it. The interesting one I think is Heidi Alexander, Shadow Health Secretary 2015 to 2016. Burnham ally, was part of his leadership campaign in the past. Seems to be a fairly safe pair of hands, not the worst communicator in the world. I think is definitely someone who could be considered for this, and it would be a promotion and a reward for her support. So again, of this wider list, I think she's one to watch and one to consider. Everyone else is more in the amber or indeed the red category. And as we get further down, I think these are just non-runners. These are the leaders of the Lords, Attorney General, or Strong Star Leader of the Commons, or Strong Star allies. That Baroness Chapman, I don't think any of these are going to be considered to be the next Health and Social Care Secretary. And then we turn to those outside of the cabinet, and this is where I think it is quite interesting. Now, I think first and foremost, the person to talk about here is Angela Rayner. Angela Rayner clearly wants to come back. Tax affairs are now settled. There were rumours that she was approached about the health and social care brief when Wes Streeting resigned, and she said no. Appointing Rayner would be very interesting because it would probably signal that Burnham was really committed to doing more on social care. Indeed, in an LBC phone in this week that Rayner was doing, she was very much making the case that we need to fix social care if we're going to fix the NHS. So there could be an alliance between Burnham and Rayner on that if they wanted to go in that particular direction. I don't think John Healey is in the running here. I think there's clearly what Burnham does about the Defence Investment Plan has big implications, not only for defence but also for wider public spending and its impact on public services such as health. Healey has done the shadow health brief in the past, but I would question whether he would really want to come back in that role. Hence, he's been put on this. He's been graded amber in this list. And the other two, Wes Streeting coming back would be a fascinating turn of events, and we go full circle. Burnham putting a rival of sorts back into their health brief. Has Streeting though cut a deal to get a more senior level job by not holding a contest? We will have to wait and see. I don't think Streeting would himself want to come back. I think he clearly wanted to use his manoeuvrings to get something bigger and better. But there's, as I say, lots of people jostling the position right now. And the other interesting one is Lou Haig. As I said, part of these access talks with the civil service, very much running Burnham's, has been running elements of Burnham's operation, who has been sacked by Keir Starmer from the cabinet from being transport secretary. All the talk there is that she will be taking some sort of cabinet office or cross-government type role. But if that isn't what she wants, and she wants a cabinet departmental job, then she is somebody. Then it is a possibility to see her potentially get the health and social care brief. So some interesting sort of thoughts, I think, on some of the big beasts who are outside of the cabinet but who want to come back and where they sit in relation to the DHSC brief. And then just finally on what's being dubbed the Manchester Mafia and Burnham supporters, I'd be surprised if any of these, Lucy Powell, Annalise Midgley, or Mahata Famboule, were appointed to be DHSC secretary. I don't think any of them would quite work for a range of different reasons. And then people have been talking to me about, well, what about existing ministers? Could they be promoted, or ministers who've left, such as Zubir Ahmed, who are quite highly thought of? Again, I don't think, given that health is such a significant brief and that Burnham has lots of bases he needs to cover and he'll want experienced people in play, I don't think promoting someone from the more junior ranks in this instance is likely. It's not impossible, but I think it is unlikely. So what does that leave us with then? So that leaves us with 4 strong contenders and 5 people under consideration. And interestingly, all 4 of the strong contenders are women. So currently, the strong contenders that I've listed here, based on the sort of high-level quick appraisal that I've taken you through in this video, are Yvette Cooper being offered DHSC as a kind of olive branch away, but having to sort of drop out of the Foreign Office. Bridget Phillipson in a switch out of education because Burnham wants to move someone else into education and thinks that Phillipson's experience in education and running public services could be an asset. Heidi Alexander because of her as an ally and general reputation as a safe pair of hands. Then Angela Rayner, because you want to do something more on care and you want the health and care agenda. You want someone quite political in that health and care agenda as well, who can really take the fight to reform as well, but who are still obviously quite a long way off formulating a sort of coherent approach to their health policy. Second tier, the oranges, I think those are people who could be considered, but are less likely for a range of reasons. Murray, Kendall, Streeting, Reynolds, and Haig. That's the kind of like tier 2s. And then all the others are in the sort of tier 3 or the sort of amber, very sort of. It's not impossible, but unlikely. And then you've got those sort of non-runners who are the reds. Now, as I said at the very top of this video, nobody knows except maybe Andy Burnham himself. So we'll have to wait and see. But hopefully that provides a little bit of light on what might come next and some of the thinking that goes into this. It's a bit of fun because we just don't know. And also by doing this video, I've done the thing about predicting something that I don't know what might happen. And so when it doesn't happen, when none of these names appears, you can turn around and say, well, you just don't know what you're talking about, which is also probably quite nice. So I hope you enjoyed that. It was quite fun to pull together, and actually was quite useful just to get a sense of where Burnham's general thinking might be. I'm going to do 2 or 3 other pieces on what comes next for the new incumbent, what might change, what some of the policy implications might be once we get the new cabinet. But in the interregnum period in which we're in, hopefully that's a nice 15-minute video for you to chew over and to think through. Thanks very much as always, and see you soon. Bye bye.